Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be trying a gold writing hack. About a month ago I was scrolling through TikTok and ran across Erin at ECBG Studios gold writing hack video. She used buttercream. And then about a week later I saw Stacy at the Cooking Monger's video and she developed it further to use royal icing. This video right here shows Erin's original video. She mixed her gold with vegetable oil, put it in the parchment cone, put buttercream on top of it, and then you could write with it. So based on that idea, the Cookie Monger developed it further. She used corn syrup, Everclear, and then some gold. So I've got my gold right here in the cup. I'm going to pour in the Everclear and then the corn syrup. Now, she said don't do them one at a time, so I thought that mixing them, everything together, that would work. It did not. This is a total fail right here. It just all, some gooped together, some separated. It was a mess. So this is take two. So I started off by mixing some corn syrup with some Everclear. I poured probably about half a teaspoon of corn syrup in there, and then I put just, so it was probably about a teaspoon and a half of Everclear in, and then I put my gold in. I just did a little at the time. I was hoping that it would work, but as I continued to work with it, it continued to separate more, and it just really wasn't working, and I didn't want to waste more gold. So one observation I've made about this technique is that it does take a significant amount of gold luster dust to use in it. It takes way more than I would actually use if I piped some royal icing and then decided to paint over it with gold dust. And gold luster dust is not cheap. I mean, you can find some on the lower end scale, but it just doesn't work that well. So I've moved on to trying to actually put it in my piping bag and paint it in there. But what happened was once I painted it on the side, it actually started separating and glooping in spots. It was weird, so that failed. This is me trying once again. Once I had taken another look at the Cookie Monger, I noticed it almost looked like a little dropper that she was using to drip her mixture of Everclear and corn syrup into her gold. So I was like, well, let me try that. So I got another jar and I started mixing the Everclear and the corn syrup together. It started looking like it was doing something, and it was kind of nice, and nail polish consistency is what she said to look for. And so I kept going, and finally got into that consistency that I liked. I wound up having put way too much Everclear in there, so that may have been one of the original problems. So then I got my brush and I got some gold dust and I put it in a clean jar, and then I started to slowly drip some of this in because I felt like you needed to maintain that nail polish consistency that she was talking about. So just little by little I started mixing it in, and it seemed to really start working. It started to look like the video, and I decided to give it a shot. So this is just me mixing and finishing it up and grabbing a piping bag, and I'm going to paint it on the inside. I noticed there did seem to be some of the separating that I had in the previous test, but it wasn't as bad. It actually adhered better. So I continued on, building it up and everything. I did notice a lot of it dripping down to the tip of the bag, which really concerned me. If you notice on the side of the bag right there, right before I start putting the royal icing in, you can see that it's kind of slipped down the side. It did not want to stay in place. So wrap it up, and then it's time to get some scissors to cut the tip off the bag. And I've got my two little test cookies, and so we're going to do, yeah, there was a lot of extra that came out of the end of the bag. but what I decided to do for the test was to write with it. And then nobody else had done this, but I decided I was going to try and do a large figure and see if that would work as well. I'm going to let it dry for 24 hours, and then after that, I'm going to come back. I'm going to see if it actually dried and if any of the gold comes off. One of my concerns is I don't use corn syrup in my royal icing, and so I worry about drying and everything. So I'm going to set those two over to the side, and like I said, we're going to see how it does after 24 hours. Now, I decided after that, a couple hours later, I was like, okay, I'm going to try it with silver dust, and I'm going to, because I have more silver dust on hand right now. So I was like, well, maybe it's just the amount of luster dust that I put in there, and there wasn't nearly enough. So here I go again, trying with the silver. I did get, I would say, more positive results with this. It wasn't totally perfect, like you'll see in just a minute, but it was significantly better in a way until 24 hours later, and then there was an unhappy surprise. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. So here I am just mixing it up. Like I said, this is a significant amount of silver, way more silver dust than I would use if I was painting over the individual lines. But if you're writing with it, depending on how tiny your writing is, depending on how intricate the piping is, there's some definite value in using this technique. So I'm painting it on, noticing once again the like weird separation of the bag and the actual mixture. I have a feeling that has to do with the corn syrup not wanting to do a smooth adherence. It's actually wanting to kind of clump up together, but you know. So I put the royal icing in, and now it is time to cut the tip off. Like I said before, it made a huge mess when I cut the tip off, and that is all like excess corn syrup and dust and Everclear. So you have to get that out before you can actually really start writing with it. So I just wrote hi, and then I'm going to make a heart and let's see what it was, another balloon, and then I did a cute little curly Q. Oh no, it was a flower, not a balloon. I got ahead of myself. And then I'm going to do a curly Q. Now as I'm writing, I have noticed that the silver has already stopped coming through well. This curly Q, the bottom of it is basically white. You can see it's still all over the bag, but it is not all over the cookie. That curly Q at the bottom is very, very white. So that has now been added to the test. So we will do 24 hours later and see how it goes. Okay, we are back 24 hours later. We are going to press on each word, image, everything to see if it is hard. We're also going to test to see if any of the gold or the silver comes off, because there's nothing worse than having your gold or your silver come off on your bag that you're using to package them for a customer. So right here, I did notice with the silver, right there on the flower, you really can't quite tell. You can see some lumps and bumps and everything, but actually it was pitting. There were little tiny holes all over the flower, and it didn't look right. I didn't have the same issue with the gold, but I don't know if this just meant I was using too much silver, if it just, I don't even know. If you know, let me know in the comments. I would love to know why it pitted. So I'm just pressing on the G in the gold. I didn't get any gold dust to come off on this. It was solid, so that seemed excellent. in my opinion. So perfect there. I was going to try the balloon next. The center of the balloon, I don't really have high hopes for. I do have a feeling that it's going to sink in and that it didn't dry enough. But I started off with the tail of the balloon and it did give. Um, so right here you can see that it is kind of crushed right there at the bottom of the balloon. And now I'm going to stick my finger and press right there in the center. And you can see there's a giant divot in there. So yeah, I don't use corn syrup. I don't care for corn syrup. If it works for you, that is great. For me, it does not. I don't know if it's the weather where I live or what, but it just doesn't work. So seeing that does not give me high hopes for that flower, but we're gonna try everything else on the silver side. So rubbing the H, the silver came off, so that's excellent. I'm gonna rub the weird flower, nothing came off there, or the curly Q or the heart. So the high is solid, the outline of the heart is solid, the curly Q is solid. I do not have high hopes for this flower, and with good reason. As soon as I started pressing on it, it felt weird, like sticky and gooey, and even though it had been 24 hours, it was like it hadn't dried. And right. Okay, so here's a close-up of the flower. You can see that there is some residue coming off of it. It didn't give as bad as the gold balloon, but it still is not dry and messy. So overall, this technique I feel has a little something to be desired from my end. I can see if I, had just a tiny bit of gold to do or some extremely thin lines that it might be helpful. But right now, I'm not so certain that this recipe is working for me. Other people have developed recipes, and I would be interested in trying this in the future. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button down below, subscribe, maybe leave me a comment. Until next time, bye!